Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah. Man, we've already started off strong, haven't we? Testimony, baptism. Man, that's so good. So good. Would you turn to Matthew chapter 24 with me? Matthew chapter 24. We're actually going to look at Matthew chapter 24 and chapter 25. We'll look at both of those together. But before we do that, I just want to give you a peek into the life of Eric Nichols for a second. If you were to live in my home, every Saturday night you'll see a routine that occurs. Because I'm preaching on Sunday, I have to prepare myself for the next day. And I don't want to wake up and feel like I have to get everything done. So I like to have it done the night before. So if you were to walk into my house on a Saturday night, Beth, my daughters, my son, they would all tell you there'll be an ironed shirt hanging near the door with shoes to match. And that all of my other clothes would be either on the top of my dresser or already in the bathroom, completely done and finished. And it's because I want to be ready. I want to be prepared. I don't want to wake up the next morning and some weird circumstance happen and I come in here disheveled. It actually goes back to when I was in the Air Force. I could not stand, I'm just going to say it, what we would call a duffel bag airman. What that meant was they pulled their clothes right out the duffel bag and put them on. We called them duffel bag airmen because they were just all wrinkled up and I actually do the ironing at our house. And it goes all the way back to my military days. Every night, Beth will tell you, every night I would iron uniforms. I would have them hanging up, ready for the next day. And it was something that was, y'all are looking at me like I'm weird, but it's just kind of a part of what I have to do. It's like in order for me to feel like I'm ready, I can't even go to sleep until I'm ready. Anybody ever do something like that? Anybody like that? Thank you. I thought I was weird. Thank you. I say that to kind of preface this message that I want to talk to you about. I want to entitle the message, Ready or Not. Ready or Not. And it goes back to the days when we used to play hide and seek. Anybody ever play hide and seek before? All right, somebody's got to count to whatever, 100, 1,000, 10, I don't know, whatever. Count to what you can. And then you shout out, ready or not, here I come. See, you know, right? Well, here's what I want you to know about Jesus. When he's ready to come, it's going to be ready or not, here I am. There is no ready or not, here I come. It's ready or not, hello, I'm here. So much so that Jesus gave us this as a warning, as a loving warning. In chapter 24, he talks about the signs of the end times. Chapter 25 is all about, and he says, ready or not, here I am. Now, he gives us some signs of the coming back. But you'll see in this passage in chapter 24, I'm going to actually look at verse 36. Now, go back and read the entire chapter because it talks about the second or the coming of Jesus when he comes and he returns. But I want to catch up in verse 36 because we don't have much time. And I want us to peruse through chapter 25 together because they're all tied. They're all one passage. They're all tied to one thought. Verse 36 says in this chapter 24, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son. And I think that's intriguing. Not even the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. So will be the returning of Jesus. No one knows the hour. No one knows the day. That's why when somebody says, well, I've read the Bible and in 1984, Jesus is going to be coming back on this day, you're like, now you may have made a lot of money out of that book, but you're out your mind. If Jesus says, I as the Son don't even know when the Father. By the way, that ties to their tradition. The Jewish tradition was this, that a man and woman would be betrothed. The man would go back to his home and begin preparing a place for his bride. Does that sound familiar? Jesus said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. I will return. Where I'm going, you don't know, but I'll be back. Sound familiar? And here's how the tradition went. That man who was betrothed to that woman could not go and get his bride until the father of that son said, now go and get your bride. Which, women, you should be thankful for that, because those young men, they didn't know when the house is ready. But the older, more mature man was like, okay, now they can actually move in. And he would say, now you can go and get your, which is that same tradition. And now we're seeing this played out. When Jesus says, the Father will say to me, go and get your bride. And that's when I'll return. Having said that, I just posed the question, are you ready? I think we need to ask that question, don't you? What verse was I in? Man, we just barely, y'all going to have to listen faster. 38, for as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Therefore, be ready. Be ready. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have left his house, or let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be, talk to me, church. You got to be ready. Therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming in an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Being ready is tied to doing the will of God. Like walking, it's tied to following Jesus. Following the one that we said we have surrendered to. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed, begins to beat his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and put him, listen, these are Jesus' words, not mine. And put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I think that as we're looking at this teaching of Jesus, we just have to ask the question, am I ready? We just need to ask the question, am I ready? And really that's between you and the Lord. You know where you're at in your relationship with him. You know whether you even have a relationship with him. I think of all the different ways that we could tie to the being ready. I was grounded just one time in my life. It was just it's a one-time thing. I was grounded often. And on this particular occasion, I don't even remember what I did, but I was not supposed to have friends over. I was not supposed to go outside of the house. I had to do chores, all the things that come with that. And I was at home and one of my friends came and knocked on the door. And I knew he wasn't supposed to be there, but I was like, come on. My parents won't be home until, you ever done that? Be home too. Well, on this particular day, my mom decided that she wanted to come home a little bit early. How dare she? We're inside, man, we're learning to juggle. We had actually we had like socks that were wrapped up and we were learning to juggle and stuff. I don't know why that's so funny, but it was a thing. Listen, it was socks. You can't hurt anybody, I guess. So we're learning to juggle, and then right in the middle of it, it's like you hear that car drive into the driveway, and you go, oh, snap. What now? this is what was funny. My friend, his name was Mike, we were eating like Cheerios. We had like the hand in, but we had like the hand in the Cheerio thing and we were eating. Y'all ever do that? I just want to know if we're on the same page. So, well, he took off out the back door so fast that he took the Cheerio box with him. The reason I got caught was because he was too much of a gentleman and he knocked on the front door to give me the cereal back. Really now? Really? First of all, my mom wasn't stupid. I was going to get caught. But y'all know in your life, there's been those times where you just didn't expect someone to show up, and they did. You know what it feels like to not be ready when someone arrives. And so I think it's important for us to just, for a second, process these scriptures and ask, am I ready? Because ready or not, he's going to come. And when he arrives, it's done. He's already there. So we would pose the question, do I have a relationship with him? If I do, would I want him to come back now? Is that fair? I mean, do I want him to come back now when well, God, don't come back yet. There's some things. Or there's this other question that I want to ask, and this isn't to be harsh. It's just a process. Am I so attached to this world that I don't want him to come back? Because this world has very little to offer in comparison to what he wants to offer to us for eternity. And so as you're looking at these passages, the very first one in Matthew chapter 25 is the parable of the 10 virgins. These 10 virgins were all betrothed to this spouse apparently, and it's just a parable. So it gives us the imagery of what it looks like. And the bridegroom is going to be coming back, and they're supposed to be ready. And part of their preparation is to have oil in their lamps so that they'll be burning when the bridegroom comes back. It's intriguing because in this particular passage, they specifically calls them 10 virgins. The reason that's intriguing is because this is actually tied to intimacy. So if you want to write that word down, there's going to be 3 words we're going to talk about here real quick. The first one is intimacy. The second one is investments. And the third one is the interests of others. So intimacy, investments, and interests of others. These parables tie to this. So the very first one has to do with this thing of intimacy. And what you find is these 10 virgins are waiting for the bridegroom to come back in the parable that Jesus teaches. And when he comes back, it's in the middle of the night. And 5 of them are not ready and 5 of them are. 5 of them had bought extra oil beforehand. They had paid for the extra oil so their lamps would be trimmed and able to burn until the ceremony occurs. The other ones were going to fall short, so they asked the others, can we have some of yours? And they said, you can't have ours, you got to get your own. That's the way it is with intimacy with the Lord. You can't have somebody else's. You have to get your own. And the reason that I know it ties to intimacy, because at the end of the parable, the 5 virgins who did not have oil had to go buy some. They come back and the doors are already closed to the feast. They've missed the wedding feast. They knock on the door and say, let us in. We were 5 of the brides. And the master says, I knew you not. They're like, Lord, Lord, and he says, I don't know you. That word know is tied to intimacy in Scripture. So much so that in the Old Testament, watch this, in the Old Testament, Adam knew his wife and they conceived a child. Hello? I love that he uses in this passage, he uses that they are 10 virgins, so we don't go there in this relationship, but we see how much of a deep level of intimacy we're talking about. He's like, I don't really know you as spouses know each other. But he's like, but not in the physical sense because these are virgins. But I'm saying we don't really know each other. And so I pose the question, are you ready? And I tie it to the question, do you really know him? Do you really have a relationship? Listen, it isn't just about knowing about him, it's about knowing him. There are many that come to church every single week and they can tell you all the right answers, but it would break my heart to think that they don't actually have a relationship with the Lord. And what you have to understand is you can't ride on the coattails of a friend into heaven or the faith of your mom and dad. It has to be your faith. It has to be yours. It has to be your relationship with the Father through Jesus. It can't be someone else's relationship. And so I think for some of you today, you're in this room because He's calling you into that relationship. He desires for you to be in that relationship. Don't run from that. Run into that. But know this, there'll come a time when it's too late. It is what it is. This isn't scare tactic, it's reality. If you don't know how fragile life is, look around. Amen? Because it isn't just the father saying, son, go get your bride. It's also, there's times where He says, your time is done. And we want to be ready. So intimacy is important in that, meaning there has to be a personal relationship with Jesus. Not a knowledge, but a knowing. Does that make sense? Second parable is the parable of the talents. Master comes and he gives 5 to 1. He's about to go away and he gives 5 talents. A talent was a sum of money in their day. A lot of money, by the way. Some say that it equated to 1 talent being like 20 years of income. So he gives 5. He gives 100 years worth of income to one, and then he gives 2 to another, and he gives 1 to another. How many of y'all know that some people are more talented than others? And it's okay. Because here's the deal. He's not asking you to do anything with somebody else's talent. He's asking you to use yours for His glory. And so He's like, I'll give you what you need to do what I've asked you to do. And so He gives to one 5, another 2, another 1. The one with 5 goes, investments, intimacy, and investments. And he takes what he has and he begins to invest it and he sees a return. He comes back and he's doubled it. The one with 2 has doubled it. So when the master comes back, the one with 5, the one with 2 have doubled theirs. The one with 1 did what many do and went and hid the talent because he was scared, afraid. But what we have, we need to invest. And so because of that, you see that the Lord was not, or the master was not okay with him not. And it's intriguing to me that he uses this phrase at the end of that parable. He was like, you, instead of hiding it away, you could have put it in the bank and at least gained some interest. There's that word, some interest. I think you have to understand our investments are tied also to our interests. And if our interest is in kingdom, then we will invest to see a kingdom return. Amen? You'll note that these parables actually all tie together and they kind of tell a complete story. So let's go to the third one. Are you still with me? So the first one was the 10 virgins. The next one is the parable of the talents. And the final one is, it's not just a parable, but it's also the coming of the end time. He said, and when I return, there will be judgment. And what will happen is the Lord will separate the righteous from the unrighteous, the sheep and the goats. That's the analogy he uses. The sheep on the right, the goats on the left. And he'll look to the ones on the right and he'll say, enter in. Well done, good and faithful servant. You ever heard that before, that phrase? Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into your masters. So there's that piece that's going on. And they say to him, because he goes on to say, because you fed me when I was hungry, you gave me water when I was thirsty, You visited me when I was in the prison, when I was sick. You cared for me. He goes down the list, right? When I was naked, you clothed me. And they'll say to him in reply, when did we do that? And he said, when you did it unto the least of these, you did it for me. When you took care of others, you did this as though you were doing it to me. Here's why. Because when we take care of the interest of others, using the talents that we have, it ties to the intimacy that we have with the Lord. Why do we take care of the needs of others? Because we know Jesus and we know that's what he wants us to do. You'll see how it all ties together. And there will be the ones on the left that will say, he'll say to them, you did not give me water when I was thirsty or food when. And they'll say, well, when? And he said, what you did not do unto the least of these, you did not do this unto me. And I believe that Jesus told all of these parables so that we would understand that being ready is tied to all three of these. Like when Jesus comes back, I want to hear from him, well done, good and faithful servant. He said, I only gave you a little, but you use that for my glory and for the good of others. I want to see that. I want to hear from him. I knew you and you knew me. I want to hear that. Anybody else? I want to hear, enter into your master. Come on. Enter into the joy of your master. I want to hear that. Well, so getting ready, being ready is tied to all of this. And I look at it in a lot of different levels. Like, first of all, if I'm not saved, Jesus comes back, I don't want to be stuck there. Anybody? I mean, I don't want to be stuck there. If I am saved and I really love the Lord, then I want him to come back and find me faithful. I want to be ready that way too. And so there's this thought of a bride getting ready for a wedding, or even a groom getting ready for a wedding. You know, you got to go get fitted for the dress and for the tux, and you do all the work to get ready. Anybody, you get ready for the day, because the day is the moment that transitions into the life together. And so you're preparing for wedding day, and I want, when the groom comes back, for the bride to be ready. I want that. Then I think about a parent who comes home and, like me, the kid's acting a fool. I don't want to be that kid anymore. I want when he comes home to find me being faithful, doing what he asked me to do and not doing what he asked me not to do. I want to be ready that way. But then I also got this beautiful image that for the first time hit me this week as I'm thinking about this message, and it's this one. Could you imagine meeting a parent for the first time face to face? Whew. This is my thought, y'all. I've never seen my father face to face. But when I do, I want to be ready. I mean, the thought of him in all of his glory, and I won't evaporate because of this body. Anybody? I mean, I just won't diminish, but I'll actually get to see the one who created me face to face. I've never met him face to face before, but I'll get to do that and to do it in such a way where I'm ready for that. Anybody? I want to be ready.